everybody. I'm down in Gulfport, Mississippi this morning, and as you can see, I'm representing the Admirals with my shirt on. That was deliberate. I am with Dr. Hamp Harper and his lovely wife, Dr. Tamara Harper, and one of the things that we're going to be doing today is we're going to be having a discussion, particularly with Dr. Tamara, about she's a pediatrician, and she'll tell you more about herself in just a second. But with back to school fastly approaching, we wanted to make sure that we got information out to our membership and our partners about the things you need to be looking out for, things you need to be concerned with, and also putting to rest some myths that may be out there, and also some information that she's going to share today, I'm sure from the American Association of Pediatrics, that will help to ease the mind of some of our parents who are out there. And with Dr. Hamp, of course, he's a principal at Gulfport High School, and he'll talk more about that in just a second. But of course, his team is preparing to receive these students who are going to be coming in for the school year, and I'm sure they have multiple models that they have in place for this upcoming school year. So without further ado, we're going to start talking to them, and I believe this is going to be a blessing to you.
I am the campus pastor, assistant pastor here at our Gulf Coast location, of course, serve at all three locations. Been affiliated with the ministry since 2002. My wife and I together, we were married in 2004 and officially became members shortly after that. But 18 plus years, as I always like to brag on, 18 years strong as I've been affiliated with this ministry, love my pastors. On the flip side, on the other side, I guess I should say, I am an educator. I've been an educator since 1998. Started in public education in 2000. Certified teacher in history. Started out as a history teacher and a coach. And shortly thereafter got into administration. Been in administration, started my 17th year. Been at Gulfport High School for starting my 15th year. Currently serving as the principal. Before that was actually the ninth grade principal for a total of 14 years. So extremely excited about this upcoming year, even though we're facing many challenges, but we're built for it.
So as my husband stated, we've been members here for 18 plus years, I guess, yeah, long time. So serving under Bishop and Pastor Tony, and consider it just a blessing of all the blessings and everything that we've received while being here. While he is the campus pastor, I serve in other roles in the HELPS ministry. I'm a clerk. And also one of the greeters, and so we'll serve wherever needed at different locations, but my main role is as a clerk and as a greeter here at the Gulf Coast location. And then in my vocation, obviously, as Bishop mentioned earlier, I'm a pediatrician here on Gulfport, practicing with the Pediatric Center here in Gulfport, which is affiliated with Garden Park Medical Center. I moved back to the coast once we got married, so I've been practicing here 14 plus years, having started my career in Mobile, where I trained at USA Children's and Women's Hospital, where I started there in the children's ER and was there for about 4 plus years before coming and joining the practice here. So we're a small practice, busy on the Gulf Coast, and again, have been here for 14 plus years and enjoy serving the children on the Gulf Coast.
Dr. Tamara, I'm going to start with you. How has the coronavirus pandemic impacted your practice?
The practice has been definitely impacted. We've had to restructure a lot of things since the pandemic hit, and it kind of hit suddenly, just like it did for the rest of the United States. And so we kind of had to change practices pretty quickly, and we are still, everything is still fluid, and we're still making changes as days go by. But the overall changes has been in the structure of how we practice. Prior to COVID, there wasn't a structure as to whether a well visit could come at the same time as a sick child, so we've restructured. Being that my practice is located in one location, we've restructured what times that we can see well children versus what time that we can see sick appointments. And so we've kind of split our clinic flow so that we're just seeing well visits at a certain time of the day. We're limiting the number of patients in the office and practice as well. So we've asked of our families that they limit the visitors or the caregiver that comes to one parent per child. We're limiting no more than 10 people in the lobby at a time, and so we're practicing social distancing at that time as well, asking that all wear masks, and we're doing screenings, of course, as they enter or as they call. We've had to decide who we may have to see in the car, so we're kind of changing as we go. We know that they're coming with concerns for COVID. I may send the nurse down to swab them in the car first. I may see them in the car. We're doing more virtual visits as well, which a lot of providers are offering as well, so that you don't have to increase your exposure if it's something that, you know, is amenable to doing a virtual visit. Of course, if you say your child has fever and shortness of breath, I'm not too comfortable doing that in a virtual setting. But if it's a rash, or we're pretty confident it's a swimmer's ear or some drainage from the ear or something like that, so or just a follow-up, we have quickly gotten on board with virtual visits, which is totally new as well. So again, lots of structure, everything's fluid, and we just kind of had to go with the guidelines as they are put out there.
Do you believe that telemedicine is going to become a permanent part of your practice?
I pray that it does. You know, when we first started, I was really excited about, and of course in pediatrics, it can get, I was really excited at first, but now I'm like, no, I don't really have time to see your playroom. Dr. Herb, you want to see what? No, I don't really want, no. I got like 10 minutes, but I do think that it is a wave of the future, and I hope it is here to stay, because there are a lot of follow-up visits and things that we can do that we can limit, and it's probably better, you know, timing when you've got working parents where the office may close at 4:30, but I can offer you this just to get the guidance and advice that you need. So I'm hoping and praying that it will be a wave of the future, and insurance companies will continue to allow it.
Gotcha. Dr. Hamp, what type of things are you guys doing to prepare for the students coming in, considering the pandemic that's going on?
Well, first of all, just talking about students and faculty and staff, for that matter, coming back into the brick and mortar building. One of the things that we worked hard to do was reduce class size. Typically, our class sizes would hover anywhere around 30 students, 28 to 30 students. So we've worked hard to get those numbers down to about 22 students in a classroom. Those classes that we were not able to get those numbers down significantly, we looked at other spaces where we could place those students, larger areas, auditoriums, theaters, what have you, even gymnasiums. So we're at a place where we really have to use every nook and cranny in our facility to make sure that we're practicing that physical distancing. Another thing that we're doing before any of our faculty and staff and students come back on our campus, they have to go through a symptom assessment where we're asked a couple of questions, as well as take the temperatures of every individual that's coming on our campus. So the trigger for us is going to be a temperature of 100 degrees or higher. Those individuals will have to return home immediately. And of course, they'll have to be symptom-free for 3 days before they're allowed to come back on campus. So different times that we're living in, and it's going to call for us doing business a different way. The primary thing is, before parents even want their children educated, they want to make sure that they're coming to a safe environment. So we're doing everything in our power just to make sure that the atmosphere, the environment is safe for our children.
That's good. Now, do you all have a nurse or multiple nurses on campus?
We do have a nurse that's assigned to every school in the district, actually. And there's a system put in place where those nurses will actually be able to float just based on the demand of each facility. So yeah, we do have a nurse, and the nurse will be busier than she's ever been before.
That's for sure.
Clinic on site too, right?
There is a clinic. We also have a clinic on site.
Oh, wow.
That is really a well visit clinic that's for faculty and staff. So that's something that we'll probably use in a different way as well.
Is that manned by a physician or a nurse practitioner?
Manned by a nurse practitioner.
Gotcha. Okay. Dr. Tamara, have you had any of your patients to test positive for COVID yet?
We have. Not an overabundance of patients. Again, we've restructured, so we're doing a lot of well visits. I am seeing more, I would say, over the last 2 weeks. A month ago, I could only say I've only had one baby, but In the last 2 weeks, I've probably had about 5 children that tested positive.
Oh, wow.
And so it is getting to be more frequent. I think it is because we're doing more testing now as well. I still don't feel like we have testing capabilities for what I don't feel like we have max testing capabilities that we need. But we are able to do more testing now, and so we are starting to see more cases. In all these instances, I feel like the children have done exceptionally well. They've had like fever, URI symptoms for about 24 to 48 hours. And the hardest part has been, quarantining and just kind of reassuring the parents. But the kids have really done very well. In all of the situations where I've had a child positive, I think the family let their guards down a little bit as far as the social distancing. So they were all in areas where they weren't able, to practice social distancing. And they'd say, well, we've been in the house for the last 3 months. A couple of them, there were some church congregations that there were several positives within the congregations. And so those were my initials. And then the latest ones have been, we went to a neighborhood birthday party. And I don't think it's the C, but do you think it is? And so they're presenting with fever, cold. Again, overall, the children look well.
So, Dr. Hamp, have you all had anyone in the school district to test positive for COVID?
Yes, we have had several positive cases, but what we're seeing more of is more exposure to individuals who have tested positive. And of course, we have to treat them exactly the same way as you treat a positive test with the 14-day quarantine. In addition to being symptom-free for at least 3 days prior to returning to campus. So yeah, we've actually dealt with some positive cases, but what we're seeing more of is individuals who have been exposed, who have yet to go get tested. Some have elected to go ahead and get tested, and of course we just deal with them once they get us the information back from their test results.
Gotcha. Doc, what, we talked about the positive cases that you've had. Tell me a little bit about what the recommendations are for people who do test positive.
So for the ones that do test positive, the recommendations are basically symptomatic care and quarantining and staying safe and isolating yourself, basically, or isolating your child. And so it is a virus, and the vast majority of patients do really well with just symptomatic care, whether that's Tylenol, increasing your fluids and rest, and of course we talk about mobilizing your lungs and all of such. But the biggest issue and the way that we can kind of help to control the spread is just following those quarantine guidelines, where you're quarantining for 14 days if you had a known close contact, close exposure. And if you're positive, as Dr. Hamp said, the recommendations currently are that it has been at least 10 days since you tested positive, no fever for at least 72 hours, and symptoms are free for at least 72 hours. So it has to be all 3 of those things in combination.
Gotcha. Follow-up question for you. There's been a lot of talk about how this situation is impacting children. Mm-hmm. First of all, just COVID in general and mm-hmm. sheltering in place. Mm-hmm. But what about the school piece? Mm-hmm. Even there seems to be some negative impact on children because they are isolated mm-hmm. and they're not able to go to school and be around their friends, and it's even having an emotional toll. It's mm-hmm. taking an emotional toll on them. Tell me a little bit about that. So there has been documented that it has taken a toll, as you've stated, and that we're seeing some regression in developmental and social milestones. And for your older children, you are seeing more psychological effects, where we're having an increased rate of depression, increased rate of anxiety, and also an increased rate of teenage suicides. And so, as parents, we have to stay calm and maintain faith, but also engage your children, and so that they understand that this is a process and why it's important to stay vigilant and why we're doing the things that we're doing, so that they kind of better understand. And the children seem to be anxious to go to mm-hmm. school. Children are anxious to go to school, and again, I've had patients that are like preschool age, from 4 years old to 5 years old, to teenage, that really are excited about wanting to return to school. I've had some patients that said, Michael is not going to school this year, we're doing virtual, and Michael is on the table crying, saying, Dr. please help her, I want to go to school. So hopefully you have some type of good rapport
with the school and administrators, and that you trust that they're going to do what's in the best interest for the children at that school, so that parents, some of them don't feel capable of doing homeschool or virtual at home. And I've had some patients, and I applaud them in saying, I'm not equipped to do this home virtual thing. My child has to go to school, or I have to work. My child has to go to school. And again, the children are anxious to return. For the most part, living on the coast, I guess, with us having water and beaches, I haven't seen as much of the depression, suicidal side, but I have seen them where they're anxious and really, ready to go back.
Gotcha. Dr. Hamp, there's this talk about educational gaps between students who come to school and students who will distance learn. Yeah. There's a lot of misconception out there about virtual learning, and particularly with parents who think they're equipped to teach their children at home. And having been a homeschooler myself, I understand how much work actually goes into it. And if you're going to do it right and your child's not going to fall behind, you really have to be vigilant in making sure that they're educated. Have you had these discussions with parents? And tell me what your thoughts are about that.
Oh, yes. We have, in our district, we have a virtual learning coordinator and really a virtual learning team comprised of virtual lead teachers. And one of the things that, just school specific at Gulfport High School, one of the things that I've had our 10 virtual lead teachers do is go ahead, we're going to break this list up and we're going to contact and almost give like a personal orientation to every student that has elected, every parent that has elected to do remote learning. So we answer specific questions, and one of the things that we stress is you're going to be embarking upon something that's totally new, and it's going to be difficult. So just as your child is learning, from a parental standpoint, you're going to have to do a lot of learning as well. Learn our virtual platforms, learn content. So it's going to be a great demand, and one of the things that we try to do is we really try to explain that up front to parents and to children, that this is going to be a process that is going to be very demanding. One of the things that we try to do from a school standpoint to help with some of those concerns is we're going to do synchronous learning, which means live instruction in our 4 core classes. So we'll basically pump from school to home live instruction by way of the virtual platforms that we'll be using. But we encourage parents to stay in tune with the child as they're going through that live instruction coming from the school to the home.
Tell me about that new technology, that swivel technology.
Yes, we're using a neat little gadget. It's called the swivel. And with that swivel, you're able to basically connect a tablet. You connect by way of Zoom. And that swivel will basically swivel and follow the teacher around the classroom as they're mic'd up. And it will follow them, as they move from table to table, desk to desk. And a child will actually be able to see that teacher moving about the classroom. The beautiful thing about it also, as they're mic'd up, they'll be able to turn to their screen, to their Promethean board, and say, okay, Johnny, who's at home, or do you have any questions? And that child will basically be able to ask any questions to that teacher while live instruction is going on.
Wow.
So we'll have that in our 4 core classes, which is called synchronous learning. We'll do asynchronous learning in a lot of our electives, our foreign languages and what have you. In addition, with some, it'll be a mix or a blend of synchronous, asynchronous learning, where when you talk asynchronous, that we'll basically be able to upload instructional videos, upload assignments, and we're still able to see time on task. So the goal is for each student that's virtual learner to receive a schedule and basically follow that schedule to the T. Even though they're at home, they'll basically be able to follow that schedule to the T and receive instruction, just as if, they were following a schedule in our brick and mortar building.
Gotcha. Dr. Tamara, as a pediatrician, of course, you are part of the, AAP. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us what the recommendations are from the American Academy of Pediatrics regarding students returning to school?
So the AAP, which is the American Academy of Pediatrics, strongly urges in place or in the brick and mortar learning for children, taking into context that the school is doing all that it can do to mitigate COVID. But our first priority is getting the child back in the actual classroom for in-person teaching and learning.
Okay. I know that you know, people read articles and people read stuff on the internet, and I know that I've seen the recommendations from the AAP just through some, you know, some streams that you've actually directed me to that we were actually looking at for the academy, and so that's important that for parents to know.
And that information is available for parents. Again, the CDC has a good checklist that can kind of help parents decide and decipher what is the best option for them as well. And so that's on the CDC website. The AAP has a website just directed to parents. And so it will speak more, you know, not in a medical lingo, but more geared towards the parents. And that is healthychildren.org. And so it will have a checklist as well to kind of help you decide or make the choices what's best for your child. And also to help, you know, to kind of guide you as to what you need to do once school is back in and how to keep your child safe as well.
Got you, got you. So Dr. Hamp, if you had to say anything to parents who are contemplating bringing their children to a brick and mortars building and being in school, what can you say to them that's going to put their mind at ease that they're sending their children to school and they'll be safe when they're there? Could you look at the camera and tell them that?
Well, first and foremost, I think, and I can speak for Gulfport High School, and I think that every school across the state has really worked hard at implementing a lot of safety protocols and precautions to make sure that, you know, when those children do come to our building, that they're going to be safe. There's going to be symptom assessments where we take temperatures, we ask questions. One of the things that we've done is really trained our teachers to really be in tune with the children that come in their classrooms and really, you know, being, like I said, in tune with whether how they're feeling, ask them questions about their day, really to get information so that, you know, if there's a red flag of any kind, that they can direct them to the school nurse, direct them to administration. We've ramped up cleaning protocols, we've added custodial staff, and I think that's kind of been a trend along the state of Mississippi with most school districts. We're going to make sure that teachers are supplied with the things that they need, whether it be hand sanitizer, whether it be disinfectant spray, disinfectant wipes, and going to give them a portion of the instructional day as students leave, you know, before they receive the next set of students, that, you know, things have been wiped down, sanitized, and cleaned. So I think there's all of those things and the natural or prudent things to do. Of course, you know, we're word of faith, we're faith for life, so there's some spiritual things that we have to do to make sure that our children are covered when they leave our presence. Psalms 91 is a confession that, you know, our church, we feel that every individual needs to have in here, that they speak over their own lives as well as their children. So take care of the spirit side, but it's also prudent to do things in the natural as well.
That's great. Dr. Tamara, as we end, what would you say to parents who are contemplating sending their children back to school as a healthcare provider?
As a healthcare provider, I would first say to the families to stay calm, stay faithful, don't walk in fear. But as Dr. Hamp said, we've got to say there are, you know, prudent things that we need to do on our end and staying vigilant. And again, explaining to your child why it's important to take all these steps, but explaining the importance and maintaining our vigilance in social distancing, the hand washing, and the wearing of the mask. But we've got to stay vigilant and don't let our guards down as far as social distancing is concerned. But again, I think just stay calm, and hopefully you have a provider, your pediatrician, you know, that can help gauge you through that process if you're having some fears and some concerns. Again, children are vigilant, and children are resilient for the most part, and they are doing really well for the most part. So I think just kind of staying calm as we get through the process is the main thing, but staying vigilant at the same time, because kids, again, are resilient and they're going to do well.